Hey guys, this is our group for Dynamics project. It's me, Gun Ho, Randall, and Lucas, and we're doing the Colliding Balls video project. So this is what happens if you drop just a basketball, and here's what happens when you drop just a tennis ball, and here's what happens when you drop a
The potential energy of the two balls is being converted into kinetic energy as they fall. At this moment, the basketball hits the ground first and then bounces up and collides with the tennis ball that is still falling.
The way we're solving for the final velocity of the tennis ball is we're splitting it up into two separate collisions. First, collision between the basketball and the ground, and second, collision between the tennis ball and the basketball. So starting with the first collision, we know the mass of the basketball, the height it was dropped from experimentally, and the coefficient of restitution between a basketball and a hardwood floor. There we can find the velocity of the basketball just before the collision, and using the coefficient of restitution, find the velocity of the basketball after the collision, which is 4.023 meters per second. And that is used as the initial velocity of the basketball for the second collision. And here we know mass of the basketball again, mass of the tennis ball again, and we can solve for the initial velocity of the tennis ball right before the collision, and then use conservation of momentum and our coefficient of restitution equation to solve for the final velocity of the tennis ball, which is 8.8 meters per second, which is twice as much as its initial velocity right before the collision. Finally, we can use a kinematic equation to solve for the final height given the initial velocity of the tennis ball, and that comes out to 3.9 meters, which is 240% higher than it was initially dropped from.
So the experimental final height was 2.9 meters versus the theoretical final height of 3.9 meters, resulting in a percent error of 25.6%. This large error is in part due to the ball not bouncing off perfectly vertically from the basketball, and the coefficient of restitution that we used in our previous calculations may not match the materials that we used perfectly.
The dynamics of this experiment is analogous to the process that occurs during the explosion of a supernova. Just as the energy from a large basketball is transferred outward into the small tennis ball, the energy of a dense core of a supernova is transferred in a shock wave through the layers of a star and accelerates them at very high velocities.